Some buildings remember. They hold on to the screams, the tears, the final breaths of the people who once walked their halls, and no matter how many coats of paint or new furniture come in, something underneath refuses to leave. Across America, there are hotels where guests check in for a peaceful night's sleep and check out shaking, pale, and unable to explain what they saw. Tonight, we step into 5 of the most haunted hotels in the United States, and the true accounts that have followed them for over a century. We begin in the Colorado Rockies, at an elevation of over 7,500 feet, where the Stanley Hotel stands like a pale sentinel against the mountains. Built in 1909 by F.O. Stanley, a man who came to Colorado hoping the thin mountain air would cure his tuberculosis, the hotel became infamous not for its founder, but for a writer who spent one restless night in room 217 in 1974. That writer was Stephen King, and what he experienced there became the seed for The Shining. Guests who stay in that same room report their belongings unpacked and folded neatly by unseen hands. Housekeeping staff have long refused to work alone on the 4th floor, where the sound of children running and giggling echoes through empty corridors at 3 in the morning. The ballroom piano has been heard playing on its own, a slow, mournful tune with no one seated at the bench. Some say it's the spirit of F.O. Stanley himself, still walking the halls of the place he built with his own hands, unwilling to let go even in death. From the mountains we travel south, into the heart of Texas, to a place that isn't quite a hotel in the traditional sense, but a location so soaked in dread that it belongs on this list all the same. The old crossing near what locals call Goatman's Bridge in Denton County. Travelers who once sought shelter at the small roadside inns near this crossing tell stories that stretch back generations of a farmer named Oscar Washburn, a black goat farmer who was lynched by a mob in the 1930s after his success drew the jealousy and hatred of his neighbors. They hanged him from the very bridge that now bears his name, and when the mob returned to check their work, his body had vanished, leaving only the rope swinging in the dark. Since then, drivers who stop their cars on the bridge at midnight and honk 3 times report a pale, goat-like face pressing against their windows, eyes glowing yellow in the headlights. Old innkeepers who once housed weary travelers near the bridge refused to rent rooms facing that direction, claiming guests would wake screaming, insisting something large and horned had been standing at the foot of their bed, watching them breathe. We move next to San Jose, California, to a mansion so strange, so deliberately confusing, that it was built specifically to trap the dead. The Winchester Mystery House was the obsession of Sarah Winchester, heiress to the Winchester rifle fortune, a woman who came to believe she was cursed by the spirits of every person killed by her family's guns. A medium convinced her that as long as construction on her house never stopped, the spirits could not find her to claim her life in return. For 38 years, carpenters worked around the clock, day and night, building staircases that lead to ceilings, doors that open onto nothing but air, and windows built into the floor. Sarah believed the maze-like design would confuse malevolent spirits, long enough for her to escape them each night. Today, visitors report cold spots that seem to follow them through the twisting halls, doors slamming shut on their own in empty rooms, and the distant rhythmic sound of hammering, as if the construction that defined Sarah's entire life never truly stopped, even in the house's silence. From California, we travel to the quiet plains of Kansas, to a modest white farmhouse in Atchison, known simply as the Sallie House. Though small compared to grand hotels, its reputation for violent, aggressive haunting has made it a required stop for anyone chasing the truly paranormal, and families who once rented rooms there as boarders never stayed more than a few nights. The story goes that in the early 1900s, a young girl named Sallie died on the kitchen table during an emergency surgery performed by a doctor who lived in the home, and something about her death left her spirit enraged rather than at peace. Unlike gentle ghost stories, guests here report scratches appearing on their skin without explanation, deep red marks that burn and sting as if unseen fingers had raked across their arms and chests. Objects fly off shelves in full view of witnesses. Electronics turn on and off with no power source nearby. Investigators who've stayed overnight describe a suffocating sense of being watched with hatred, not sadness, as though whatever remains in that house resents every living person who dares to sleep beneath its roof. Finally, We arrive in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, at the Lowe Hotel, a stately Victorian building constructed in 1901 along the banks of the Ohio River, in a town already infamous for the legend of the Mothman. Long before the Mothman sightings that would make Point Pleasant famous worldwide, the Lowe Hotel was already collecting its own ghosts. Room 314 has become the hotel's most notorious, where guests report the distinct cold sensation of unseen hands pressing down on their chest in the middle of the night, pinning them to the bed as they struggle to move or cry out. A former hotel employee is said to still walk the halls in her old uniform, seen clearly by guests who later discover, when shown old photographs, that she died decades before they were ever born. Staff members refuse to enter the basement alone after dark, describing a heavy, suffocating presence near the old boiler room, as though something down there breathes alongside them in the darkness, patient, endless, and never quite leaving. 5 buildings, 5 states, 5 different tragedies, and yet the pattern repeats itself again and again. A death too sudden, too violent, or too unjust to be forgotten. A building that absorbed that pain into its very walls and beams, and a lingering presence that refuses the mercy of moving on, choosing instead to remain among the living, watching every new guest who dares to turn off the lights and close their eyes, waiting to see if tonight, finally, someone will stay awake long enough to notice them standing in the corner of the room.